Can Kirk Cousins have another big day carving up a struggling Cowboys defense?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of not just Locked On Falcons, but Locked On Cowboys, because it is Crossover Thursday. And of course, Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code Locked On NFL, and you can win $50 instantly when you play $5. So I am Aaron Freeman, the illustrious host of Locked On Falcons, joined by Marcus Mosher, one of the hosts of Locked On Cowboys, and it is Crossover Thursday, and we will be previewing this epic Week 9 showdown between the Dallas Cowboys and Atlanta Falcons. And we thank each and every one of you that is an everydayer of these two great podcasts. And to become an everydayer, right, to make these podcasts your first listen or first watch each and every day, all you have to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So with the Falcons hosting the Cowboys, Marcus, I'm going to be, a gracious host and allow you, the co-host of Locked On Cowboys, to talk about what's going on with this Cowboys team this week. And, my hope as a Falcon fan is one thing that isn't going on with the Cowboys is the triumphant return of Micah Parsons. So maybe you can give us an update on that, because if Micah Parsons plays in this game, the Falcons will have no answer for him, even if he's at like 72% or whatever he is coming off his injury. But, what are some of the big issues going on with the Cowboys, and will we see Micah Parsons this week?
So outside of the fact that the Cowboys just aren't very good, they've got injuries all over the place. And let's start with Micah Parsons, because that's the big one. They really haven't been able to get any stops at all without Micah Parsons on the field. Last week, there was no player on their team that recorded multiple pressures outside of Chauncey Golston, who had 2. They have no pass rush without Micah. He's not going to play this week. He didn't practice Wednesday. He's really not all that close to playing. Maybe he'll be ready for the Week 10 matchup against Philadelphia. This has always been a 6 to 8 week injury, and we're on week 5 of it right now. He's not going to play. Now, the other interesting thing is, do the Cowboys have corners in this game? Trevon Diggs, their star outside corner, he's dealing with a calf injury, did not practice on Wednesday. I do think he'll probably play. But DaRon Bland, their all-pro cornerback from last year, he's dealing with a Liz Frank injury. I've got some concerns that he's not going to be ready to practice or to go this week. Did not practice on Wednesday at all. Has not played this season. And with the Cowboys only have 3 all-pro players on defense, and if all 3 of them were to miss this game, I just don't see how they get stops on that side of the ball.
Well, I will say this on Micah Parsons, rest up Micah. The Cowboys need you for some of these divisional matchups. You don't need to go out there and play against the Atlanta Falcons. What do you got to do at this point in time? So, it is a devastating blow if the Cowboys cannot get some of their key playmakers back this week. Obviously, with the Falcons coming off a red hot performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we'll sort of see if they can pour it on this Dallas defense that has struggled mightily this season. But, is this Cowboys offense good enough to kind of carry the team? And potentially, if we get into a potential shootout with this Falcons offense, can they win that way with the defense down so mightily?
That hasn't been the case so far this year. And maybe one of these games it'll click. It's in a dome in Atlanta. Maybe the Cowboys offense just goes off. But we've been waiting for that all season long. They just haven't had one of those games where everything is clicked. They can't run the ball. They have one weapon on offense in CeeDee Lamb. Again, I have some confidence that it eventually will get figured out, that the offensive line, the young offensive line, will start to mesh. But until it happens, you can't predict that it's going to be a week where they finally score 30 points. I mean, you look at that 49ers game. I mean, it was a struggle for them to get 20 points. It didn't happen until the very, very end of the game. I just don't see that happening yet. And with Zach Martin dealing with a back issue, elbow issue, I don't know how the Cowboys are going to get this offense off the ground.
And I guess, Marcus, big picture stuff, you bring up Zach Martin, uh, the best guard football, future Hall of Famer, from what I've seen watching the Cowboys this year, and obviously I haven't watched as much as you have, but he feels like a shell of
Yeah.
the great player that he once was. And it kind of just feels like a microcosm of the Cowboys, where it's like, this was kind of, last year was their all in kind of year. And this year, it was kind of we're going to run it back and see if we can catch, lightning in a bottle, I guess. And it just doesn't seem to be going the Cowboys' way. And are we in the midst of this whole thing coming apart, or do you feel like this team can find a way to sort of, revivify this 2024 season?
So I'm going to answer your second part of your question first. This has always been a soft rebuild. Jerry Jones went on a local radio station a couple of weeks ago and laid out the case like, hey, we just didn't want to spend any more money on this version of the team. We've spent a lot over the last couple of years, and we're kind of paying, I don't want to say paying for our sins, but you get the idea. Like, this is going to have to be the year they reset their cap. So I do think at some point in this year, they're going to start to play better football. But does that mean they're a contender or they're going to make the playoffs? I don't see it unless they were to happen to steal a couple of these games, like this game against the Falcons or the Eagle game next week. I don't see that happening. As for Zach Martin, you're right. The last 2 weeks have been arguably the worst games of Zach Martin's career. You can see he just doesn't move the same. I know he's dealing with multiple injuries right now. I also wonder if his heart is still into it. I mean, you just don't see the same energy out of him. This is what happens with older players. I mean, he's played a lot of football. He's started to get banged up the last couple of years. You'll see number 70 out there on Sunday, but it's not the same all-pro player that we're used to seeing.
Yeah. So, one player that is coming for that crown is Falcons guard Chris Lindstrom as potentially the best guard in football, and we'll change tunes and switch gears here on this crossover Thursday, talking about whether Chris Lindstrom and the Falcons offensive line can protect against Kirk Cousins and keep the momentum that they were building against Todd Bowles and the Bucs the last couple of weeks, and be able to put points on this struggling Cowboys defense. And we'll get into that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons, Locked On Cowboys crossover Thursday. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. And it takes a lot of energy to power through all the tailgates and touchdown celebrations, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans just like you. We see you. And you know what gave me a bit of Falcons fan fuel this past week? It was the moment when Falcons special teams ace Kadero Hodge made a huge tackle on a fake punt, and I jumped out of my seat because I'm a big believer that special teams matters, and it may matter to you, but you know what definitely matters to you is having energy throughout the day. And 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy, and that's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you stay fueled all season long. So what's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. Continuing today's Locked On Falcons, Locked On Cowboys crossover Thursday with myself, Aaron Freeman, joined by Marcus Mosher, Locked On Cowboys, and talking about the Atlanta Falcons coming off a big win, now 4-0 in the NFC South, seemingly cleared the path to, potentially making the playoffs and winning this division. But as Cowboys fans know, the last time the Falcons, or not the last time the Falcons and Cowboys played, but one of the more recent times the Falcons and Cowboys played, the Falcons had a lead and they managed to blow it on a big special teams play. Very consequential, but we'll see if the Falcons can keep this momentum going. But one of the ways that they can keep this momentum going is with the big story on offense, which is Kirk Cousins is coming off arguably his best game. He's played 2 really good games against the Tampa Bay Bucs this year, but he's proven he can ball out against Tampa Bay. Can he ball out consistently against other teams? We haven't consistently seen that in the 6 other games. We've seen moments for Kirk Cousins, and so this is a golden opportunity. As Marcus, you broke down earlier, this Cowboys defense is reeling. They can't rush the quarterback. They have some woes in the secondary. The Falcons kind of have a pick your poison sort of skill position group where, Raheem Morris spoke earlier this week about how, some weeks somebody's not going to get the ball, but when Darnell Mooney's eating and Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts and Drake London, there's only one football to go around, but all of these guys have been making plays throughout this season. And so that seems like a juggernaut that could really do some damage against a Cowboys defense that is struggling, as you mentioned, Marcus.
Yeah, my big question for you, Aaron, is we're out of Kirktober now, and we're going to Kirkvember. I don't know. Historically, Kirk has been awesome in October. I don't really care about October, November, Kirk Cousins. But one of the things I do want to ask you is, how do you think Kirk has progressed from the Achilles injury? Because, listen, as a diehard Steeler hater, I watched that week 1 game. Yeah. My conclusion was Kirk can't move. Like, if he can't move and can't drive into the football, this isn't going to work. But we have seen him progress over the last couple of weeks. To you, who studies the tape, what have you seen from Kirk's mobility?
Well, I mean, on a relative scale to the other 31 NFL starters in the NFL, Kirk can't still move. But
no,
you did see last week in the fourth quarter him make a sort of crucial run and scramble, a 13-yard run. Basically, I think that was 13 more yards than Kirk Cousins has ran for this entire season. So, that one play looked like a sign of progress for Kirk Cousins. And I feel like he's still not going to be that guy that's going to generate a lot of, second reaction plays and extend plays outside the pocket and move within the pocket and whatnot. He still remains very much a statue. And we'll see if Mike Zimmer can sort of cook up some things from his days in Minnesota with that familiarity and throw some blitzes at Kirk that he hasn't seen coming. And so, yeah, the mobility is still a major concern with Kirk Cousins, but it does feel like, based off of what we saw this past Sunday against Tampa Bay, it is progressing to be not a massive liability like it was in that week 1 match.
Yeah, I mean, you could just see he wasn't confident in stepping into any of those throws. But I want to talk about some of the weapons on this offense. Obviously, everybody knows about Bijan, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London. But one of the reasons that I'm so bullish on this Falcons team this year is because of Darnell Mooney, who's played really well over the last couple of weeks. He's one of the guys for me that's an X factor in this game. If he's making big plays down the field, Dallas has no chance. But I wanted to ask you, what have you thought of Darnell Mooney in his first year with Atlanta?
Yeah, I was very vocal, being like, I don't see Darnell Mooney being this high level number 2 wide receiver that the Falcons are paying him. I think he's more of a number 3. He'll be better in Atlanta than he was in Chicago, but like, he's probably not going to be that good. And he has absolutely made that take age like milk in the Sahara Desert. Kind of like your AJ Terrell take. No. I had to go. I had to go there. I'm sorry. I
forgot about that one.
Yeah, I know. Falcon fans haven't forgotten, but no, I'm kidding. Yeah, he's played great. He's been much more effective as that vertical threat. Like, he was not that effective in Chicago. And I remember getting into debates with Falcon fans, and they were like, well, he was, he didn't have the quarterback play, and he has Kirk Cousins now. I'm like, well, I don't know if the quarterback play matters, because Justin Fields was hitting all those deep throws to DJ Moore, and he wasn't hitting any of them to Darnell Mooney. And that you get to Atlanta, and the quarterback play does seemingly matter. And so Mooney has been outstanding these last couple of years as a vertical threat, as an outside receiver, stretching defenses. He's still not the world's greatest yak guy. He's still not the greatest contested catch guy, but he gets enough separation, especially on some of those vertical routes, that it doesn't really matter all that much, and he can be a playmaker for this team.
Still reeling from that AJ Terrell comment. I completely forgot about the 2020 draft. But thank you for letting CeeDee Lamb fall to the Cowboys. It's very much appreciated. I can't imagine what their offense would look like without him. But,
you're doing all right.
All right. I want to ask you about the defense. Because again, if the Cowboys want to win this game, it's going to be through the air. Talk to me about Atlanta's pass rushers. Obviously, they have Matt Judon. Grady Jarrett's still there, but have they been able to generate a consistent pass rush this season?
No, they're dead last in sacks, and it is reflective of what this team's ability to get after the quarterback. Baker Mayfield dropped back to throw 50 times. The Falcons got 0 hits, 0 sacks on him last week. That kind of tells you the story. This is my main concern with this game, because when you can't get pressure on a quarterback like Dak Prescott, and I know Dak has not necessarily had the best season of his career this season, But this is a golden opportunity for him to have a get right game. This is a golden opportunity for this Cowboys offensive line to sort of bounce back based off of their recent struggles. And the Falcons can't really slow down Dak Prescott. I don't know if they really have an answer for CeeDee Lamb, especially when he lines up into the slot where, they're arguably their weakest corner and D. Alford lines up. So this is an opportunity for, I think, Dallas's passing attack to really, go ham in this game, because the Falcons can't really get the pressure that they necessarily need to in order to force, some of these turnovers that Dak has been prone to this year.
One more question about the defense before we move on. The Cowboys, or at least Dak, has struggled when he's played teams that have really high quality linebackers that can cover all over the field. I know Atlanta has Troy Anderson, who was a pre-draft love of the Locked On Cowboys show. But can you talk to us a little bit about Atlanta's linebackers this season?
Yeah. Troy Anderson's missed the last 4 games. We don't know quite if he's going to come back this week with a knee injury. So his presence would be able to provide a little bit of that value. He's still an up and down raw player, but the last time he played, he played an outstanding game against the Saints. He won NFC Defensive Player of the Week that week. And so the hope was that that's going to be more consistent performance for Troy Anderson moving forward. But obviously he has to get healthy before that can happen. But their other linebackers aren't great in terms of coverage ability. Caden Ellis is okay, but his specialty is rushing the quarterback. Nate Landman is much more of a old school downhill run thumping, Levon Kirkland type of linebacker, which is not necessarily going to get it done in the ways. And, that rookie JD Bertrand has flashed some things, but he's not necessarily a guy that I think is going to be able to fill those big shoes and be the type of playmaker that you're talking about.
Yeah, and the Cowboys love throwing the ball up the middle of the field, whether it's CeeDee Lamb out of the slot, Jake Ferguson, Jalen Tolbert's been playing more in the slot as well. I fully expect the Cowboys to try to attack the middle of the field, avoid Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons as much as possible. And we'll get to keys to victory, but the Cowboys are not a vertical passing attack. That's just not what they do well. When they're at their best, they're throwing the ball in the short to intermediate parts of the field 40, 50 times a game. In that way, Aaron, I do think the Cowboys might have at least some advantage on offense.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's the style of defense that the Falcons play, is the style that is willing to concede those, to basically let you dink and dunk the ball down the field. And so if Dak wants to throw 15 6-yard passes to CeeDee Lamb, the Falcons will say, okay, we'll take that. And hopefully we'll get to a stop in the red zone where I know the Cowboys offense has struggled mightily. And that's going to be how the Falcons are going to play. And so the challenge for the Falcons is going to be, or I guess the challenge for the Cowboys is going to be, Jesse Bates is known to cheat, and he will come down and cheat down over the middle, and knowing some of those shadow passes are going to come over the middle and try to jump those throws. And so that is going to be the sort of beware that Dak is going to have to be aware of where Jesse Bates is on the football field at this point in time. But, I think one thing that could factor into that is if Justin Simmons is not healthy for this game. He missed last week's game against the Bucs. We'll see what his status is later this week. But, if he is not in the lineup, I don't know if Jesse Bates is going to feel as confident cheating as much as he wants to on some of those throws, just with his Justin Simmons' replacement, Richie Grant, back there, who's less reliable as sort of that deep sort of security blanket down the field. And so we'll see how that plays in there. But yeah, I think certainly the Cowboys offense will have some opportunities to kind of dink and dunk their way down the field. But we'll talk about sort of keys to victory as we continue today's Crossover Thursday, looking at 3 things that each of one of these teams need to do in order to win the game. And we'll break that down as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons and Locked On Cowboys podcast. Now get ready to tackle NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can go and check the live stats, the live play-by-play, and do it all on the same page where you place your bets. And that page where you place your bets, you might be wanting to bet on this upcoming Falcons-Cowboys matchup, where the Falcons are 2.5-point favorites. So head on over to FanDuel FanDuel.com today. And again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet over at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And guys, if you are a renter like me, it feels like far too often you're in this endless loop where you're watching your money vanish into thin air, and it's time to end the loop, turn the rent game around, and start earning some serious rewards. And that's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in, and use those points to jet off on a dream vacation. And you can put your points toward a flight or hotel stays, or you can redeem them toward a future rent payment. And they're designed to meet your lifestyle, whatever your lifestyle is. And so earn those points by paying your rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use our URL so that they know we sent you at joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl to start earning points with your rent payments today. Aaron Freeman here of Locked On Falcons, joined by Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys, and it is Crossover Thursday presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So, Marcus, what are 3 things the Dallas Cowboys have to do to win this game on Sunday, a.k.a. keys to victory?
Yeah, this one's pretty easy for me. You just have to stop the Falcons in the red zone. Like, you're going to give up yards. Dallas gave up 470 yards of offense to the 49ers last week, and most Cowboy fans thought they did a good job. Like, that's just kind of where we're at with this defense right now. Like, it's not the defense we've seen for the last couple of years. They're going to give up yardage. But when we get to the red zone, make Atlanta kick field goals, or at least make them have to make the decision whether to go for it on 4th down or not. And you've got to force some turnovers, right? If they go another game without being able to force any takeaways, they're just not going to win. So takeaways on defense, get some red zone stops, and then on offense, stop shooting yourself in the foot. The Cowboys can move the ball on offense. We've seen that all year, but their red zone offense has been terrible. Dak Prescott has thrown multiple interceptions in 3 straight games. First time he's ever done that. If they can avoid the major mistakes and be efficient, control the ball, control the clock, they're going to keep themselves in this game. And you just never know. You never know what's going to happen in some of these NFC games. Get to the 4th quarter, make it a 1-score game, give yourself a chance to steal a game that you probably shouldn't win.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with the Falcons, you look at sort of their 3 keys to victory. I think number 1, you don't want Dallas to have a get-right game. Number 2, you just want to run the football as effectively as other teams have done against this Cowboys defense. And, piggybacking on the point you made is win the turnover battle, right? And when I talk about getting right, don't let Dallas get right? Cowboys, 32nd in the NFL in rushing the offense. They're 31st in the NFL in red zone offense, right? And the Falcons are historically known for being that get-right team where it's like whatever issues you're dealing with, you can do it against the Atlanta Falcons. And this year hasn't been too different. Their red zone defense isn't particularly good. Their rushing defense isn't particularly good. So don't let Dallas get into a groove and have that type of game that we're talking about that they haven't necessarily been able to have. And then just break their will with the Falcons' own run game, right? I know some of these stats can be a little misleading because teams tend to run the football more when they're up in games. But under Mike McCarthy, when teams run for over 140 yards against the Cowboys are 5-15. I think they've lost 11 straight times when teams have hit that benchmark. So let's make it 12 if the Atlanta Falcons are doing what they're able to do. And then, of course, win the turnover battle. I think turnovers are going to be key in this game because guess which 2 quarterbacks lead the NFL, according to PFF, in turnover-worthy passes or turnover-worthy plays this year. It's Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins. So there's going to be probably a little bit of chaos. There's probably going to be a back-and-forth game. It's probably going to come down, as you say, to, some of these closing minutes and something wonky could happen. 7 of the Falcons' 8 games this year have been 1-score games, basically midway through the 4th quarter. And so that's a razor-thin margin for error. The Falcons have been able to finish the majority of those games, but you never know. And a turnover here or there can put you behind the 8 ball in these situations. And so that could be critical to winning this game in what is probably going to be a closer game than Falcon fans would want. But as you say, like, that plays, I think, potentially to the strengths of the Cowboys to potentially steal one.
Yeah, and look for the third quarter to be the deciding quarter in this one. No team in the NFL has been worse in the third quarter than the Dallas Cowboys. They just can't get their offense right after halftime. I think it's an indictment on Mike McCarthy that they're not making the correct halftime adjustments. So we saw last week the Cowboys went into that game against the 49ers with a 10-6 lead. Coming out of the fourth quarter, they were suddenly down, I believe it was 27-10. Like, that's how fast things turned in that game. If the Cowboys can keep this close coming out of the third quarter, I think they've got an excellent chance to win. But I think that third quarter could be awfully dangerous for Dallas.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see what's what. Any sort of closing thoughts, Marcus, before we duck out of here?
Yeah, this is a really tough matchup for Dallas because they just don't have the horses on the defensive line to stop the run game, right? So I fully expect them to have to try to load up to stop the run, and that's going to leave a lot of one-on-one opportunities against Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Darnell Mooney. And with DaRon Bland likely not going to play in this game, Kalen Carson, the rookie corner, likely not going to play. His backup, Amani Ojawari, was put on injured reserve this week. The Cowboys could literally be down to their 5th and 6th outside corner in this matchup. They're going to need a lot of luck to win this game, but we've seen in the NFL anything can happen. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. And again, Kirk Cousins is known to introduce a little chaos into things. So, that may go in Dallas's favor. So we'll see if the Falcons can build off of their success. We'll see if the Cowboys can rebound off of some recent struggles in this matchup. Again, I think it's going to be a fun matchup for everyone out there watching. Make sure you continue to tune in to Locked On Falcons and Locked On Cowboys all week long to get you more geared up for this upcoming Week 9 matchup. And, of course, to get you geared up for all the other action going on around the NFL, check out Locked On NFL, 2 shows daily. Get that shot of NFL espresso from none other than Locked On Titans, Tyler Rowland, first thing in the morning. And then head on over to the barbershop with Locked On Jaguars, Tony Wiggins, for that real NFL talk. Locked On NFL, Locked On Cowboys, Locked On Falcons. They are all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.